Number 1. Great Dane. When I was 19 years old, I was still living at home. I didn't have a whole lot of friends and was pretty indifferent to my family. I spent a lot of time in my room and didn't go out a whole lot. However, this of course made things a bit hard for me once I got out of school. I can't remember exactly why I started doing this, but I began going to this bowling alley a couple of towns over at night. I would get up, walk down the street to the train, take the train 2 stops over, and then walk over to the bowling alley. And then I would bowl a few games by myself and maybe play a few solo games of pool before I would go home. There were rarely any other people there when I went, which was fine with me. I was mostly there on weekdays. It was also pretty dimly lit. The thing that surprised me the most was the first day that I went into the pool room. I almost fell over in shock when I was immediately greeted by a dog that was nearly as big as I was. It was a Great Dane that belonged to the owner of the bowling alley. I didn't know a whole lot about Great Danes, but I was assured that they were pretty well-mannered animals whose bark was much worse than their bite. After a while, I got used to the dog being around. I was usually at the bowling alley pretty late, but not what most people may consider late. It was open until 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was usually out of there before 11. There was a lot of drinking that went on then, and I wasn't old enough to drink, so it wasn't as fun to just watch the drinking happen. There was one night, though, that I wasn't getting along very well with my parents, and I went off to bowl. I didn't want to come home on time that night, so after my arm was tired of bowling, I decided to stay and play pool. I noticed as I was walking back to the pool room that the man at the desk was arguing with a really filthy guy. I didn't really hear what they were fighting about and didn't think it was any of my business. I went and played pool for a long time. When it was nearly 2 in the morning, the owner came in and told me that they were closing and I'd have to come back in the morning. I had never been in the alley so late and was surprised at how empty it was. I went ahead out the door and walked on the sidewalk. I had to go around the alley and through the parking lot in order to get towards the train station. I turned around the corner of the alley and then stopped. It wasn't well lit on that side, but there was enough light for me to notice that someone was crouched down behind the dumpster, peering around the corner. I told you I stopped. It was a natural reaction. It was also enough of a tell to let the guy know that I saw him there, and he quickly came out of hiding. He held something in his hand, and I watched him and realized it was a pocket knife, and he slowly slid the blade out. "Just give me your wallet, and I won't have to cut a piece off of you," he told me. I stood there, too terrified to move at first. I backed away a little bit, and he noticed it. The man charged at me as I turned around and began to run back to the entrance to the alley. The moment I got around the corner, however, he grabbed me around the neck, and I immediately felt the knife at my neck. He pressed it in and said, "I ought to just kill you for that." He pressed the knife in a little further, and I felt it pierce my skin. I really felt I was gonna die right then. I knew that I should be reaching in my pocket for my wallet to give to him, but I was too scared to even move. And then, I heard a loud and scary barking. Looking up, I saw the Great Dane from the bowling alley standing right in front of us. He barked and growled, and damn, it was nearly as scary as the man with the knife. And when the guy didn't immediately back off, the dog charged forward a couple of steps, barking menacingly. I felt the knife and the man's arm both removed from my neck. He then pushed me towards the dog and ran off. The dog ran past me and after the guy, although it eventually gave up pursuit. The alley owner told me that the man had caused problems at the alley before, so the dog knew him quite well. He had let the dog out to use the bathroom at just the right time to save me from that jerk. Number 2. Cosmic bowling. Have you ever taken part in cosmic bowling? I can't say that I ever really saw the appeal in it. You basically bowl in the dark, with some lights and glowing things in the alley. The worst thing that ever happened to me happened because of cosmic bowling. My friends and I were looking for something to do, and one of them wanted to go bowling. So we headed down to the alley. When I realized that it was cosmic bowling, I immediately balked. It was just not something that I wanted to do. And in addition to it being glowy and such, the alley that we were going to used strobe lights. I always hated strobe lights, so I wasn't too keen on that either. But I decided to go ahead and do it, because my friends were insistent that we bowl. So keep in mind, I wasn't in the best of moods. It didn't help that the alley was playing some really loud music as well. It was like being at a dance club at midnight, nearly impossible to see anything, and nearly impossible to hear anything. All in all, I found the entire thing to be very unpleasant. At some point, while I was sitting and waiting for one of my friends to finish his shot, someone came up to me from behind. He asked me something, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was. I turned to look at the guy and asked him what he was trying to ask me. I sort of made out that he wanted a cigarette. I was smoking one, so he figured he could bum one. I was a bit of a jerk and told him to fuck off. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that, I know. But I told you I was in a bad mood. I kept watching my friend bowl, but the guy didn't move away from me at first. He just kept standing behind me. I did my best to ignore him, looking forward at my friend, but he just kept standing there. It was intimidating, yes, and I knew how stupid I was to have been so rude to him. But still, he wouldn't leave. He kept standing beside me, and I kept doing my best to ignore him. When my buddy was done bowling, he turned around and saw the guy standing beside me. He gave me a look as if to ask, "What is going on?" But all I could do was shrug. He then began walking towards me, and suddenly my friend seemed to be lunging toward me. I was shocked, and seeing it happen with the loud music and the strobe lights just made it seem like something out of a movie. My friend, however, didn't hit me. He did tackle the guy beside me. I moved up and tried to make out what was happening. My friend overpowered the guy, holding his right hand out, with my friend's left, and punching him with the right hand. It was only then, when the lights came on, from the manager noticing the commotion, that I saw the gun that was lying on the floor next to the guy. It was explained to me later that while I was ignoring the guy, my friend noticed that he had something in his hand and pointed at my head. It was a gun, and he had it pointed at my head. My buddy didn't even really think. He just reacted and tackled the guy. Afterwards, he felt bad because he knew that tackling the guy may have made him shoot. But he couldn't control it, fight or flight, and he fought. Hey, I wasn't mad at him, I was grateful. People are weird when you think about it. I mean, the very idea that someone would either shoot or threaten to shoot someone because they were rudely refused a cigarette. Yeah, I shouldn't have been an ass, but what I did didn't deserve such a reaction either. Number 3. Brighton Bowl. This story is going to be really weird, as it really didn't happen to me, but it was pretty shocking. I grew up in Boston. I'm in my late 20s right now, and I am a really big fan of horror movies. One of my favorite films is the original Cabin Fever by Eli Roth. My entire family is from Boston as well. This happened just a couple of years ago. My Uncle Joe is in his mid-50s, but he and I get along very well. He recently got divorced from his wife. Since then, he has been spending a lot more time around me. It's been great, and I have been getting him to watch horror movies with me. He really didn't like them at first, but eventually sort of warmed up to them. I remember when we first began watching, he would cover his eyes up a little at first. Now he doesn't do that, but I can still tell when he is scared. So one day, I was just suddenly in the mood to watch Cabin Fever. I let him know that the movie was more of a gore fest than actually being scary, although I guess that it still had some pretty scary parts in it. So we watched it. He seemed to like it at first. As usual, we would talk about the movie in the beginning and make some jokes about what was going on. However, when we got to the scene about the campfire story, he got eerily quiet. For those who haven't seen the movie, Ryder Strong's character tells a grisly story about a bowling alley called Brighton Bowl, where a disgruntled ex-employee tied up and murdered the other employees, and then bowled their limbs and organs. It's a way over-the-top story, but I did think it was probably the best part of the movie. I thought it might freak my uncle out, but didn't expect him to get so quiet. It was weird. It was always one of my favorite parts of the movie, so I kept looking at him to see how he would react to it, and I caught him watching it more intently than any other part of the movie. Toward the end of the story, he suddenly asked me if we could watch another movie. I asked why, and he simply told me that he didn't find this one to be very entertaining. I could tell he was covering, and he was probably really scared. I confirmed this when I asked him if he wanted to watch another horror movie, and he told me no. I really didn't know until the following day why he was so upset. He told me that while watching the movie, he was at first a bit surprised that one of the characters was telling a story about a bowling alley called Brighton Bowl. He grew up in Brighton, and actually went to a bowling alley called Sammy White's Brighton Bowl. It was owned by a former catcher from the Boston Red Sox. Apparently, my Uncle Joe played on his high school bowling team. That bowling alley was where they practiced. He had been having some problems with his hook shot, and he took some free time of his own to go to the alley and practice. He went several days in a row, and one day, when he showed up, he saw that the bowling alley was closed down, and there was police tape covering the door. He didn't know what was going on, of course, until he heard it on the news. The previous day, a disgruntled ex-employee tied 4 employees up, bludgeoned them with a bowling pin, and then shot them execution style, just like the character in the movie. And then he stole a measly $4,000. He did it because he couldn't get his job back. My uncle had been at the bowling alley that day, September 22nd, 1980. He had been at the alley pretty late, but had left before the attacks and the murders happened. He had never read the details of the killing because he found it to be too disturbing. But while he watched this movie with me, he honestly believed that the character was detailing the story as it actually happened in real life. Thinking that he had barely missed being involved in such a disturbing scene was terrifying to him. However, he went and did the research and realized the story on the movie wasn't completely correct. But still, to find out that this happened and that my uncle barely missed being part of it, and it happened on the day someone I cared about was in the alley. What if he had been there later? Who knows what would have happened? I never looked at that movie the same way again. Hey all, Killer Orange Cat here. I hope everyone is having a great New Year so far. Sorry I didn't have a New Year's video or a closing on my Hitchhiker video. The editing for that one was a whole lot of work, and by the time I was done with it, I just wanted nothing more than to rest for a bit. I appreciate all the positive feedback on it though. I'm gonna do my best to have more than just one upload a week. I know through the holidays I was averaging that. I've lessened the amount of time I spend on research, so I can dedicate more time to this channel. I've been talking about doing that for quite a while, but finally got around to doing it. So, let's see what we can do. Also, I need to apologize for my voice, which is just a little bit hoarse. I was feeling kinda bad over the weekend, but I'm doing much better right now. I'm not going to make this a habit, but there are a few things I wanted to mention. I was asked to give a shout out to Ava and Owen by Paul Cherry, so I hope they both enjoyed it. I know Chills has mentioned me twice, and it was pretty cool for me to have a narrator I enjoyed say my name. Plus a viewer, Top L's cat, Ellie, passed away last month. I wanted to give the kitty a mention because, as a cat lover, I realize how much pain Top L must be going through. I'm sorry Ellie is gone, and could tell from your posts she will be missed. Rest in peace, Ellie. If you'd like to read print versions of these stories, please check out the Killer Orange Cat subreddit in the link provided. You can also take a look around at the Killer Orange Cat merchandise store. In the meantime, if you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider hitting the subscribe button below, or using the icon of Ichigo that will appear at the end of this closing. Feel free to leave me a comment to let me know what you think of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter, using the links in the description. If you have a story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please send it to the address provided in the description. My main requirement is that the story is original, meaning it has not yet been read on any other YouTube channel. I hope you're having a great New Year, and please don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.